Make your marks.
You're listening to the Pullbuoy Podcast.
Hello and welcome back to the Pullbuoy Podcast. Steve here, and on this episode, Bob and I had the chance to speak to someone with a great story. That's Adam Barrett, who is back in the pool. So let's have a listen to what he had to say. Well, we saw the England team for the Commonwealth Games being announced a week or so ago, and amongst those names, we were very happy to see on that list Adam Barrett, and I'm delighted to say he joins us today on the Pullbuoy Podcast. Adam, welcome. Nice to have you here.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Well, we have to start there with that Commonwealth Games team and say congratulations on your selection for Birmingham. Did you go to trials with that as an aim? Were you expecting to be able to meet those times and maybe get that nod?
I think when did the times originally come? Maybe a little under a year ago. It would have been about maybe June, July last year. I saw that there was a potential to qualify really on the 50 fly, which hasn't really been an avenue in this country for a long, long time. I saw the time. I thought, that's certainly doable. So sort of focus switched to that post-Christmas, and I thought, come on, let's see if we can get on the team, because it'd be real nice to swim in front of a home crowd at Birmingham. And fortunately enough, managed to just sneak under the time and get myself on the team.
How hard, Adam, has it been knowing what you knew and the fact that you were on the team and having to keep it quiet? It's a bit like an OBE or an MBE, isn't it? Because you knew well before the team was actually announced.
Yeah, we knew a little bit in advance. So you just got to be smart. I've learned over the years, don't jump the gun on these things. Just take your time. Everyone will find out eventually. So just be relaxed about it and don't spill the beans, so to speak.
Well, you kind of alluded to it there, that you saw the times and that was maybe a prompt to start thinking about your swimming again a bit more seriously. But if we take a step back, I mean, people will know you were on the GB team 2014, 2015, swam Commonwealth Games in Glasgow and put in some pretty strong relay performances in particular. And then you swam through until I think 2017, at a sort of national, cusp of international level, if you like. And then stepped away from swimming, at a high level anyway. Is that pretty much how it panned out for you?
Look, there was lots of circumstances to why I stopped in the first place. Like you say there, I sort of came onto the scene 2014, had some pretty strong performances that year. Then sort of for a couple of years there in between, things didn't quite click. Struggled a little bit with just, I don't know what it was really, but things weren't clicking. Sort of culminating in 2016, missing out on the Olympic team, which was a big blow really. But then sort of made a few adjustments and changes post that trials, and sort of found my groove again a little bit. Obviously, then I think that summer I went away and I swam at all the World Cups, certainly the European legs anyway. And then I found sort of what I was looking for, some strong short course performances, which has always been my strength really, opposed to long course. Always a decent long course swimmer, but really short course was where I shined. And sort of the reason I stopped essentially was I thought I should have been selected for the 2017 European Short Course Championships. I'd been ranked number one in Europe for 100 fly short course for like 2 seasons. And I even expressed my interest. I said, please, I'd love to go. I think it's a great opportunity for me. I think I should win gold, really, if I was to be selected. And I wasn't selected. So I sat back and I thought, well, realistically, that might have been my only shot at winning an individual gold medal on an international stage. I haven't got the opportunity to do that. So what am I doing? Why am I putting all this time and effort in if I'm not going to be sort of offered the opportunities, I feel I deserve in that respect? There was other opportunities I didn't deserve, which is fair enough. I'm more than happy to accept not being selected for that. But, at the time, I was quickest by over half a second on a 100 flight short course in Europe. And to not have the opportunity to do that was a bit of a kick, really. And as soon as the team was announced, I pretty much stopped the next day, perfectly honest. And it was a bit maybe petty on my account, but I just didn't see any avenue for success. So, I decided then and there, that's it for me. And didn't really look back at all, to be honest. I just went straight into work like 2 days after, and didn't even really think about swimming until about 2021, to be honest with you.
What kind of reasons or feedback did you get from the powers that be about why you weren't selected or why you weren't in their plans?
Zero.
No interaction at all?
No. I mean, I was in contact beforehand stating my desire to go. I said, please, I think it'd be a great opportunity. And it was, well, you'll be in our thoughts. And then I didn't have any contact with anybody leading up to the selection of the team. And what really bummed me out was, I think they took about 8 people. Now, I understand, there's lots of costs involved in these sort of things, but, that's a tiny team. You're saying there's not one more extra place on there for someone who actually wants to go and do that thing? And it's not like I was not good enough to do it, I thought I was in a position where that was something I could, get a medal for Great Britain in. But I guess they didn't see the value in that.
Well, okay, put it this way. Were you viewed as a short course swimmer and B, a sprinter? Because there's kind of a bit of a downer. If you're not a multi-eventer, sometimes there's a bit of a downer on that. And people say you're a bit kind of one-dimensional.
We've always used short course swimming in this country as a stepping stone for the long course events, and I can understand that. Everything British swimming do is focused on the Olympics because that's what most of their funding and their support is based on. So it's understandable that most of their development is geared towards getting the best possible team for that. And in the past years, they've had some fantastic results. But for me, I'm looking at that, and to a degree, maybe even some people can feel a little bit hard done by for selections for Worlds this year. Just because it's not an Olympic event, it doesn't mean it doesn't have value. And it certainly has value to an individual swimmer. Now, there's nothing to say by sending me there, having the positive experience, maybe winning a medal. You don't know what that's going to do for someone. You don't know from then on how that's going to affect everything else in their life. Riding a wave of, doing that and the positive impact of that for someone, it could be massive. But then to not have even the opportunity to do that, I mean, just must be crushing. Well, I found it crushing, and it must be crushing to other swimmers who don't get that opportunity. It's similar to situations where I think there's sort of people who could have had a chance of winning or getting into world finals in long course events, and just because they're non-Olympic, they're not even given the choice. And if the teams were full and you had like a 36 person team and they didn't make the cut, you can hold your hands up, you can say, okay, they're focused on that, they've got the people to fill the spots. But when teams aren't full and you're not taking people who can fill these gaps, that's where I struggled a lot with it personally.
Well, you won't have been the only person to have experienced that, I'm sure. But that was a blow for you, as you've just said, and then you practically switched off swimming overnight and did something else. For that period, for those couple of years, I mean, your name pops up now and then in regional championships and masters and things like that. So were you still just swimming a little bit for yourself?
Well, I went straight into coaching. So I was still involved in swimming at a much lower level, sort of age group, local club, and I'm still there now. I'm actually the head coach of the club that I was just joining about 4 or 5 years ago. So it's been a good step up for me in that respect. But I always just kept myself fit and healthy. So I didn't swim for a good 6-7 months, and then I was just going maybe once every 2 weeks, something like that, just for exercise. Nothing else, just to keep myself fit. Obviously, I was doing other stuff as well to stay in shape. But there was a couple of times, maybe a couple of years after I'd stopped. We had like county championships. I thought, I'll just enter. Bit of fun. It'd be good to just race some of the kids I coach. And I swam pretty well considering. 50 fly, something like that. And I thought that was when maybe the first thought crept into my mind. It was like, oh, not really doing a lot, and I swam all right there. Maybe but then you're always weighing it up because you put a lot of time in to swim, don't you? I mean, it's practical knowledge that, and the time versus financial reward, because you have to support yourself, was never there. So I was sitting there. I'd have the thought maybe I'll come back, but then you're like, well, the chances of me actually being able to support myself are extremely minute. So it's not a realistic avenue. And then it wasn't until obviously all the ISL stuff started kicking off, and I didn't really pay much attention to it. Maybe the first year. It wasn't until like the second season was coming to a close. I sort of got wind of a lot of sort of what athletes were being paid or not paid in some respects, so that was when the real thought properly came back into my head about coming back.
So you've got these two things. You've got some Commonwealth times come out in 2021, and you think, well, those look achievable. And then there's the possibility of going into the ISL as well. And it's those two things together that kind of made your mind up, was it?
Well, if I'm perfectly honest, it was entirely the ISL. I almost had no intention of coming back and swimming long course. I thought, leave that to the people who want to do that. I'm more than happy to swim short course. That's what I enjoy more. That's what I'm better at. I was extremely fortunate to be included in the ISL when I was. They took a massive punt on me, and I just hope I did enough for them to repay that, to be honest. But that was the main reason I came back, ISL, to be honest.
So how did that conversation with you and Kev Brooks originate?
Well, I actually previously swam at Wickham for about a month and a half before I stopped. I came back from Loughborough summer 2017, which is where I was for 5, 6, 7, a long time, basically. And I live in Reading, so it was the closest sort of club I could join that had the facilities that I needed. So I jumped in with Kev for about a month and a half. Then obviously, like I said, as soon as the team was announced, I was like, sorry, Kev, I'm done. And then I called him up. I'd obviously, because I've been coaching, I see him every now and again at competitions, just always kept in contact. And then I gave him a ring when I decided and thought, is this something you'd be interested in doing? Obviously, I can't really do what your guys are doing. It needs to be a little bit different. Is there any way we can sort of figure something out to make that happen? And he was very supportive, sort of, since then helped me out every which way he can, and it's been going pretty well since, to be honest.
He tells me you pretty much do your own sets and your own programs. You sort out what you want to do.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if maybe he told you that or not, but yeah, I essentially just write everything myself. Every session I program everything myself. And then Kev sort of facilitates the space and the environment for me to be able to do that. I'm at an age now where I know what I need to be doing. I feel like I've got that experience and that knowledge to be able to know what's best for me. So he's been brilliant enough to let me do that, because I know there's a lot of coaches out there that wouldn't let that happen.
Have you made any tweaks or changes to what you've done?
What do you mean, since coming back or since?
Since coming back, I mean, your body's changed.
Oh, massively. Yeah, massively so. Massively so. I mean, the thing is as well, I have a lot of time constraints because I'm still working. And because I work at a swimming club, a lot of the times where I could train at Wickham clash. So it's just constantly about finding the right time and place to fit sessions in and do things. So everything I do is adaptable. It has to be. Otherwise, some days we get a call from the pool at Wickham because there's a session where I can get in a little bit early and usually scheduled to do like some quality work. And sometimes they don't have like lifeguards. So it gets cancelled and immediately there my whole week changes. So it's just about figuring out how it can be adaptable, how it can be interchangeable while still getting everything I need done. And yeah, I've massively had to change what I was doing compared to what I did before. Everything I do is way more specific to me as a person now, rather than being specific to the squad I was part of. So, maybe the yardage in that respect isn't as high as it used to be, but the quality and the intensity of work where it needs to be is always as key and as high as it's ever needed to be honest.
How much of that had you been doing before you went to ISL? I mean, you put yourself in the draft and you didn't get picked up through that process, and obviously, energy, as you say, took a bit of a punt. But I mean, how much training had you been doing in a probably more focused way rather than just keeping fit before you actually went to Naples?
So I'm just trying to remember. I got back in, I think it was all based on when lockdowns stopped. So I think officially got back in the pool around this time last year. It would have been do you know what? I even think it could have been to the day. I think it was like the 21st of May. People over 18 could get back in a swimming club environment. I think I'd done a couple of weeks maybe before that on my own in a public pool, but that's when I got back in. So what's that? June, July, or maybe 3 to 3.5 months of work I'd had in the pool before going to Naples.
And how did that work? Did you? I mean, I'm assuming you know James from your time at Loughborough. So did you go to him and say, "Look, I can do a job for you," or did he phone you up and go, "Do you fancy it?"
Well, I mean, the second the draft ended, he messaged me straight away as soon as it ended. Said, "Do you want to do it?" I was like, "Hell yeah, I want to do it." I worked with James for 3.5 years at Loughborough, and we had some fantastic results. It tailed off a little bit towards the end. I don't think really that was anyone's fault. It was just situation wasn't right. We hadn't really kept in touch, and I was quite surprised when he messaged me. But all the thanks to him for doing it, because he gave me that second chance. And I can't thank him enough for that, really.
So how did it feel going from fitting sessions in public sessions and working around the kids you're coaching and everything, to sitting in a room or on a pool deck with all these people who've come almost straight from Tokyo? Yeah,
it was good. It felt, I don't know, it felt like I was back where I wanted to be a little bit. I felt very, I don't know, it felt comfortable, if I'm perfectly honest. I felt, I still knew a lot of the people really from when I was swimming before. There was a lot of people around who I still knew. So it was just really nice to be able to reconnect with these people who I hadn't spoken to in, 4 years, really. Because I pretty much just, like I said, I just dropped off the map of swimming in a day, and sort of didn't really keep in contact with a lot of people, to be honest with you. But I'll tell you what, the first swim I did in Naples, I was part of the relays, did the first one and got out and thought to myself, oh God, I made a mistake here. I was hurting a lot. I did 100 freestyle relay, and I thought to myself, oh God, that hurt way too much. I've got to do another one in like 20 minutes. So I can't do it. But managed to get it done. And sort of what I found then from then on is every swim I did, I just felt a little bit better. I hadn't raced for 4 years, and it was just a shock to the system, I think. And everyone I did, I was just able to fine tune a little bit more and felt a little bit better afterwards. So that first one was a shock, though. I tell you.
And again, how did you find the intensity of that? Because it's repeat, isn't it? ISL, you don't get much of a break in that.
I loved it, to be honest with you. I thought it was great. I think one of the things I always found quite hard with swimming, especially with the long course swimming, is when you're always preparing for 1 or 2 meets a year. So you don't really get the opportunity to race well that often. And then obviously if things haven't gone well and you have an off swim, all that preparation for one swim that hasn't gone well. Whereas at the ISL, almost the intensity of those back-to-back swims forced you to get into gear and fine tune. I think obviously that's something you can really only do with short course swimming, because with the long course you do need that, that big block of work to be able to do it, whereas short course lends itself more to the racing, allowing you to facilitate yourself a little bit more comfortably. And but I mean, by the end, the last race we did was a little bit tiring, but I really enjoyed it, to be honest with you. I've said it to a couple of people. It harkens back to when you used to do arena or speedo league when you're a kid. You don't really think about it. You just get in, you do all these races. Don't swim down in between when you're a kid. You do obviously when you're older, and you're going quick every time. And I just think that whole environment with that, and then the whole team aspect of it, just really helps. I'm perfectly honest.
Well,
for me anyway.
Yeah. How do you feel about skins?
Well, it's funny. I always thought to myself, that'd be something I'm quite. Me previously, when I used to swim, I think would have really been able to perform quite well in them. I thought I'd love to have a go at them, and luckily I did at the end. I did the second one. I was thinking, bloody hell, this hurts. The first one was quite smooth, and then afterwards I was like, so this is why everyone's keeling over and hurting after. Yeah, it was a bit of a shock, that second one, I tell you. Yeah, but I'd certainly love to do it again. Yeah, now that I've got an idea of what it feels like. And
of course, energy champions as well. So you've got the win at the end and the deciding race, fly skins. Adam Barrett, 4th place, second round, and that was the clincher. Yeah. Talk about fairy tale comeback.
Yeah, I mean that was quite surreal, really, for me. Obviously, I got the final points, but really the bulk of the work was done by everybody else in the team. I mean, we had some absolutely fantastic swimmers that were able to get us that victory in the end, to be honest with you. I was just a small part of that and managed to do my part at the end there to get us over the line, which, like you say, couldn't have really dreamed that I would have been in that situation 3 or 4 months ago. But that was always the plan. When James spoke to me about coming on, he said, we're going to start you off as a relay only swimmer, and then hopefully build you into the meet as we go, like all the way through to the final sort of thing. And that's what we did, and it worked out.
So coming off the back of the ISL, then just before Christmas, you'd said a minute ago that was what got you back in. That's when your focus flipped to saying, well, I've got this 12 weeks, whatever, of racing and training and what have you behind me now. I should have a go at Commonwealth Games, or is it not as simple as that?
I think I always initially viewed, if I managed to go to Commonwealths, it was going to be a nice bonus. That kind of changed, obviously, when the announcement that the ISL was postponed for a year. Sort of almost on a dime, had to switch my way of thinking. It's like, okay, actually, I probably need to qualify for this now, because otherwise the rest of the year is looking pretty empty. So I think that was March, February time. Yeah. It was quite late. Obviously, I'd still been doing all the work preparing for it, but the focus really had to switch quite close to trials, really, to be honest with you.
So you were focusing on the original season dates for ISL, and trials was just a bonus.
To be honest, yeah.
So you got to trials. You swam, I think, a lifetime best in the 53. If I've got my numbers right.
Yeah, I mean, 53 was. It's just something I've been kind of playing around a little bit with. To be honest with you, the 50 fly was always the focus. 50 freestyle. I think always before it used to clash with 100 fly. So when I years ago never used to swim it. But I thought, look, we're coming back. You're training really for a 50 fly long course. It's quite interchangeable, but never really done it or have the sort of, muscle memory of being able to swim a 50 freestyle long course. So sort of learning as I go really with that event, and managed to get a little PB at trials, which was nice at this age. I tell you, they don't come.
Yeah, I think you're downplaying it a bit, especially I'm sure certain Ben Prouds are listening to this and going and gnashing his teeth hearing you saying that.
Yeah, I mean, there obviously we had a couple of guys swimming quite quick on the 50 this year. Obviously, was it Lewis? Obviously, popped on the scene, swam fantastically well. It's nice to see that progression in these sort of events in our country now. Whereas before, it's almost sort of an afterthought. You are seeing these people come through in these events and, challenging on a big international stage, hopefully.
Problem has been, isn't it, on the 53 that we've always had one good person at one time. We've had Mark Foster, we've had Ben. We never seem to have two or three, do we? We haven't, for the most part, had that kind of competition.
No, there was that year where you had Adam Brown as well. But I think it was only for maybe a year and a half, 2 year period. So, hopefully now you've got a couple of guys up there at a real high standard that can hopefully raise the level of everybody else a little bit. That's because in Britain we haven't really got that depth. We have a lot of quality. There's some events where we have got the depth. Obviously, the 200 freestyles, huge. The depth there is incredible. But you look across the board, the depth throughout. We haven't got 8 guys or 8 girls in events close to qualifying. Like maybe America and Australia don't have 8, but they've certainly got a few more than us. I think really that's something as a country and as a team would be, something they need to look towards, I think, a little bit. Because eventually all these top guys we have are going to, fade away and retire. And it's about having those people behind them then to push on through and take the place, to be honest.
Do you feel then that we don't perhaps have the legacy that we should do with some of the big events? Well, I'm looking at more distance freestyle than I'm short freestyle, but at the moment we're struggling at 4, 8 and 15, both men's and women's, which have traditionally been very strong events for us.
They've traditionally been the better events for us, haven't they? I don't know. I mean, I think in this country we don't do enough to keep a certain section of swimmer. The swimmer who is maybe between the ages of 23 and 27, who has shown a lot of promise, but maybe hasn't quite had the right environment to push on to the next stage, or has at some point pushed on and maybe hasn't then found a way to maintain that. You don't become a bad swimmer overnight. You don't. I've taken 4 years out and I'm not too far off what I used to be, so it's about finding a way to keep these people in the sport and not just sort of tossing them to the side because they've had one bad year, or they maybe have been 0.3 off qualifying for something for 2 years in a row, whereas they qualified for something the year before. Just because they haven't quite done it doesn't mean they're not capable. And I think we put a lot of emphasis on potential of younger swimmers, which is good. We need that. But there's nothing to say that even with all that potential, they're ever going to be able to outcompete those people who you're sort of brushing aside. And maybe the support for those sort of swimmers may just give them that extra push they need to maintain themselves in the sport, carry on and then see what happens. I think you're seeing nowadays in a lot of sports, age doesn't really matter as much. Obviously I'll use football as an example. You've got people who are 37, or even in swimming, you've got people who are like 40, still competing at the highest level. I think we're too quick to cast someone aside because of their age, because they've hit 25, and you think, the graphs say that they're never going to get any better, which I personally don't agree with. And I think that's why you don't see the depth, because there's no prospects or support for those sort of swimmers. So they get to a sort of breaking point where it's like I was at, where it's like, well, why am I doing this? I can't put food on the table, but I'm training 8-9 times a week. It's not sustainable.
Is something like the ISL, and I know it has its financial issues, is that part of the answer?
Well, personally for me, yes. I think there needs to be more stuff like that where you're paid first. You're paid to. Obviously, there's issues with the payments. We all know that. I'm talking theoretically. You get the basic wage first, and then everything else is topped up from performances. Whereas almost at the moment you have to be really good first to get any reward. And I understand you have to be at a certain level to be supported. I'm not saying just give it to anybody, all right? But you shouldn't almost have to bank everything on you winning a medal at a major competition to have support, because anything can happen. Especially at the moment. Well, I mean, I'd like to hope we're through the worst of it, but any athlete could go to Worlds this summer and get COVID 2 weeks before. So then they don't have the opportunity then to swim. Now, you'd like to think they take that into consideration, but I think it would be very much athlete dependent, whether they would or not. And if you're someone who's sort of on the up and coming, and you don't get that opportunity, I'm talking very hypothetical, and but these things can happen. Anything can happen, and that can have major impact on an athlete going forward. And I think just having that support and knowing you've got people backing you, rather than it feeling like they're doing you a favor, you're doing them a favor, and you're getting reward because of that. I think that's where everything needs to change, in my opinion. I mean, you wouldn't have anything without the athletes. And I almost think they're taken for granted a little bit in some respects.
Any improvements or any change you would make to the ISL to make it more athlete beneficial?
Well, I mean, there is the big one, but I think it's been spoken to death about the payments and stuff. Look, there's a lot of other issues going on at the moment, and we're all aware of that. And I think we all just have to, be understanding of that. And hopefully now they've got these new guys coming in to help with everything. And I think, going forward, as long as people are paid on time, I think, it's great. I think with the ISL, you obviously wanted to see it grow. You want to see more teams getting involved. When you've got more teams involved, you've got more spaces for swimmers. You got what, 10 teams at the moment. There's nothing to say that down the line that can be 20 teams. And then you've got a massive sort of league format similar to that what you have in other sports, and you have a winner at the end based on that. To be honest, I think that's the way sport is going in general. And if we're going to get exposure to things like swimming, it can't just be every 4 years at the Olympics. You have to have something going on a regular basis that people can get behind and attach themselves to. And when you have things like teams, people can attach themselves to that. And I think it will be better when you can start getting fans there and to watch it, because that's how you get it. I remember when I was younger, like going to sporting events, and you attach yourself to those things when you're a kid. And hopefully there'll be a new generation coming through that have that attachment.
But we do, don't we? Have to make it attractive to that audience and tap into a potential that's not there yet. I mean, the swimming audience will watch swimming, but you need to bring people into the sport who aren't already there, and you got to find. I mean, from my experience, duel in the pool was one of the greatest experiences of my life in terms of commentary, because it was an event, and we were close with the Americans. It was a fantastic event. And it threw the Sky Sports schedules out because we overran and all that kind of stuff. I thought, this is what swimming's about, right? Yeah. It's excitement, it's racing, it's competition, it's our version of the Ryder Cup or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's hard to see how you replicate that across ISL or any other competition for that matter.
No, it's difficult. I'm not going to sit here and say swimming's the most exciting sport in the world, because in some respects, you go to a competition and you're watching 10 heats of 200 breaststroke or 1500, it can be a little bit draining. So it's finding ways to make it more exciting, like the jackpot system, which I know some people aren't a fan of. Personally, I think it makes things quite entertaining. You got the skins, which I think is what people really, really enjoy watching. But, I remember doing skins when I was like 14, 15-year-old, like just a random meet. So it's been a part of swimming for ages, but no one's really capitalising on it and using these things to get the excitement factor involved. And I think that there is a lot of scope for it. You just got to find the right way to do it.
Well, it's a big subject, and one I don't think we're going to solve right now. But yeah, plenty that can be done to make things more attractive and to broaden out the appeal. Let's come back to what you're doing next, Adam. I mean, you're off to Mare Nostrum in Barcelona next week as part of the preparation for Birmingham. Looking forward to getting out and getting some international racing. Yeah. No, really looking forward to it. That was the other thing I found when I was away. I really do enjoy that international racing side of things, as opposed to your local meet here. I don't know if it's just the feel or the fact that you're racing people from another country, but it always just feels a little bit special and a little bit different. It helps get that little bit more out of you, I feel. And Mare Nostrum's a great fun, and I think I had a look at the program and it's absolutely stacked. Everyone's there, so it's going to be a real good meet to go and do, and a good way to measure your progress of your comeback, I guess. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, be nice to see where I'm at. Obviously, the big focus is commies at the start of end of July. End of July we start, isn't it? 29th, I think it kicks off. So just prep and seeing how things are going leading up to that. Obviously, you qualified in the 50 fly. Has there been any talk about the possibility of getting a go in the 53 as well? As the third place. I'm not sure if it's confirmed or not yet, but I'm hoping that I will be able to do that. I mean, I can't see why not. Third at trials, so I would like to think I'm in pole position to do that if I wanted to. But you never know. You never know with these things, do you? You just got to go with it and see what happens. Well, at least they're talking to you this time, which is good. Yeah, well, Team England have always been great. And in Birmingham, have you set yourself any targets, or do you just want to go and swim well and what will be will be? Honestly, I kind of thought experiences like this were done for me. So to even have the opportunity to do it again, it sounds cliche, but like it's just a bonus. And I just want to go there and sort of give the best account of myself that I know I can do. So I'm not necessarily saying I want to do this, I want to do this. I really just want to go in and swim the swim I know I'm capable of doing. And hopefully that leads to something positive. But I'll just have to wait and see. Well, we will, at this point, wish you all the best for your preparations. Hope you can dodge your way around the public lanes on your way to Birmingham. And say, Adam, thanks very much for joining us. Really, really interesting conversation. Pleasure. Thank you for having me. Well, that's all for this episode of the Pullbuoy Podcast. We'll be back with you in a few weeks when we'll be looking forward to the World Championships. Can't wait for those to come around. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple, please do leave us a rating. We'd really appreciate it. And if you want to get in contact in the meantime, you can find me on Twitter at Pullbuoy, on Instagram or Facebook at Pullbuoy UK, or you can send an email from pullbuoy.co.uk/contact. Until we're with you again, thanks for listening.
You've been listening to the Pullbuoy Podcast. For more episodes, visit www.pullbuoy.co.uk/podcast.